Hey, it's syndicated radio talk show host, author, singer Al Cole, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. I come from CBS Radio. My shows are nationally syndicated, and I've helped pave the way to treating women, guys too, with the dignity that they deserve, and I do that through my show, People of Distinction, airing on top networks, including the biggest airing CBS shows. That's Apple's iTunes Radio Network. Under their professional news talk division, they air CBS shows, Fox News, NPR, BBC, and C-SPAN as well. Best talk in the country around the world on Apple's iTunes Radio Network under News Talk. And I want you to run to my website. You can see a lot there, too. Hear my Apple streams, everything. And that's peopleofdistinction.org. And while you're at it, you can email me for any questions that you have. If you want to be a guest on my show, anything like that. Email me at alcoholic@gmail.com. You heard me right. That's ALCOLEHOLIC@gmail.com. And I really want to thank my CBS radio listeners for coming up with that handle, Alcoholic. It seems like from day one, my listeners have been saying, Al, we love what you're doing there, brother. In fact, we're hooked on it. We're alcoholics. Hey. And coming from CBS Radio, I'm also a New York Times bestselling author with Chicken Soup for the Soul. Chicken Soup for the Soul is distributed by CBS's Simon & Schuster. So we keep it in the family that way. Coming up, a lady who's going to help your journey through life. And her name is Patti Zona. And second time around for Patti. She was also a guest at Past Time and did a wonderful interview. This is going to be great, too. And I want you people to strap down to it. She has 3 books. We're going to be opening up with the first one called Bohemian Monet. Whoa, what does that mean? Now, we have an idea about Bohemian. Yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody, things along that line, and a little bit of maybe the German influx and things like that, Bohemian. And also, Bohemian was kind of a catchy word, a big word back in the 50s to describe beatniks, things like that, people who were really cool, hip. Boy, before, all the other people learned about things, the Bohemians knew about it. Bohemians tend to be artistic people, creative people, things like that. So we're going to be talking about a lot of this stuff, and we're going to find out why she named her book Bohemian Monet. Now, I can tell you that the subtitle tells something about that. A Journey of Discovery and Recovery. So we discover things, and sometimes we recover from things. We all need to recover sometime from something. Life is never a 100% easy journey. It's a beautiful journey if you make it that way in terms of that discovery. And, of course, Patti's had her problems. She's had her ups and downs and has overcome as well through learning. And that's going to give you another clue here where Patti is coming from, learning about things. And the first step in learning is to maybe open up your mind to these things. Because if you've got a closed mind, like people know, got a closed mind, well, nothing can get in there for you to learn and disseminate. And then if you don't learn anything, how can you teach other people? Especially if you want to. See, the life journey is maybe having some problems, learning from those problems, overcoming those problems, and then teaching other people to overcome those problems, too, in your everyday life, maybe your professional life, whatever. Spreading the love. Hey, in the end, it's all about love. And that's how we talk on People of Distinction. And that's why I want you to order that book, Bohemian Monet, A Journey of Discovery and Recovery. And it's available to you on Amazon.com. There are other places that Patti will mention that maybe you can get the book as well. And 2 other books towards the end of the show that we're going to put some focus on as well. The Value of a Homemaker, Little Cottage House, all of that stuff. And Patti will tell you about that later on. But right now it's Bohemian Monet. And she was brought to me by a great publishing company called Parchment Global Publishing. And to make your next publishing move, to move your book, go to publishing, go to parchmentglobalpublishing.com. Welcome, Patti, to People of Distinction with Al Cole. It's a pleasure to have you on. How are you, Patti?
Well, I'm good, and I liked your intro. It was really interesting.
Yeah, and I like that too. You know, the Bohemian part, Bohemian Monet, and Bohemian
Yes.
has always been a big word with, creative artists and things along that
Oh,
line.
yes.
How did the Monet get in there? What does Monet mean?
Well, I have lots of grandchildren. I was married young, but I still had children, and they had children, so now I have lots. And they're wonderful, and what a gift. What a gift. It makes everything so worthwhile. And because I was such a young grandma, the kids called me Monet.
Oh, I see. So
they called me Monet, and their friends call me Monet, and I love it.
I see.
So,
yeah, that's a cute name for a grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Monet.
Monet.
And then I'm assuming that you relate to bohemian life and learning and things along that line.
Well, I kind of do, and in fact, when you were saying it was in the 50s about bohemians, I didn't know that. I thought they were hippies, and I always considered myself a flower child.
Oh, I see.
Because I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was always very health conscious.
Mm-hmm.
I was aware. And the importance of your mind, your body, your being as healthy as you could be. That was one of my goals all through life. And but I loved Bohemian Rhapsody. The first time I ever heard it, I just loved it. And my two granddaughters, who are dancers, Lucia and Zoe, they're incredible dancers. I mean, my gosh, I said I was going to be a singer, dancer, artist, and missionary. Mm-hmm. Well, they're the dancers, and they all love it. They've been dancing practically by the time they were walking, and but they were doing this isn't why they were doing a dance program, and at the very last number was going to be Bohemian Rhapsody. Mm-hmm. And so when they were doing it, I had already decided I was going to title my book Bohemian Monet, because it encompasses creativity and determination and your own style.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we forget that we don't have to follow the norm. As long as it's healthy and it's good, then it's okay to be yourself. And I think when I moved into my little cottage house, I considered myself more bohemian than sophisticated and whatever, because my life was about struggling really and maintaining whatever I had. Mm-hmm. And but I wanted to do it with dignity, and I wanted to do it for my children and my grandchildren and for my neighbors. So I bought that little cottage house, but I put so much into it. I put so much. Paid way too much money for it. They didn't disclose the problems, and it just nobody really cared. They just removed themselves once I bought it, and I was shocked. I was really surprised, but yet I was determined to maintain it and fix it and make it wonderful, because it had this incredible lighting. You walked in the rooms, and the way that the lights, the sun would shine into the windows, and the way even the moonlight. And so, I mean, it was just a wonderful house, but it needed some care. And for some reason, the people, they moved out east. That didn't matter. But anyway, I worked really hard on that house, and I could only do it in increments because of the fact that Merrill Lynch had taken the sale of my house money and lost it all. They did it without my knowledge or consent. Oh. Not only did they lose my house money, but they lost most of my financial security. Oh, but yet there was no help for me at all. They just ignored me, and even when I went to the government, they said, well, what kind of company do you work for? I said, what do you mean company? What corporation? I said, well, I don't work for a corporation. I'm a writer. I thought that would impress them or scare them, but it didn't. And instead, they said, well, we can't help you. And I said, well, why? And they said, because you're an individual. Mm-hmm. If you were a corporation, you could have gotten all kinds of help.
Wow.
But if you're on your own, a small company or an individual, you're on your own because that's the way it was. Mm-hmm. And this was after the crash, the economy when they crashed. But I'm working on this house. I didn't let any of that. I thought I was gave me more determination than ever to just do what I had to do to maintain my dignity and to show but I thought, well, I'll get my money back eventually. Well, that never happened. And then because of all the stresses that I had, and it was a lot of work. It wasn't all the work inside, but it was all the work outside. And I was determined I wanted to have a beautiful garden. I wanted to have the gardens because I was learning to appreciate gardening, and I was learning so much. And I had a little fairy garden for the kids, and we'd have craft days, and I just wanted it to be inviting, an inviting, magical place for them. Your childhood goes so fast.
It certainly does.
Your children grow up so fast. And I realized that was my own. I had my children when I was young, but yet it still went way too fast. So I wanted to make sure that I know my kids were busy. They were also busy. I wanted them to have a wonderful memories of the fairy garden and having craft days at Momet's and so that was a good thing. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing is all of these the financial stresses really took a toll because my taxes kept going up, and the airplanes. I don't think I ever slept a full night of sleep because of all the airplanes, and it was like they were kamikaze airplanes flying right over my house. Would wake me up. And I would hear them before I went to bed. The first thing I woke up when I'd hear them when I woke up. But They would also fly sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd wake up 5, 6 in the morning. Anyway, you don't get a good proper sleep at that point.
Right.
But between the stresses of the financial problems and always working my physicality, it was like something was going to give at one point. So I ended up getting really sick. I got so sick that I ended up having to go to the doctor. I hadn't been to the doctor in years, and my doctor said I almost was going to have to have you go through all this work, but I know you. So I thought, well, I'll go ahead, and I gave her a book of mine, my first book. So at any rate, she gave me this medicine, and it helped me because I was going into pneumonia, and she caught it right away. The thing is, after my pneumonia, then she ended up giving me more medicine for it, and I said, well, I'm okay now. She says, yeah, but I want to take this medicine. Well, she ended up giving me so many different kinds of medicines that I had a horrible, horrible reaction to each of these medicines, so I couldn't take anything. But I actually got so sick that I thought I was going to die. Mm. I mean, I thought, this is my time. I've had a relatively good life, but I'm going to have to get my affairs in order in a very weakened state. And then, meanwhile, through all these years, people have always wanted to buy my house or sell my house, one or the other. And but I ended up, I got so sick that my one grandson plays the piano beautifully, and I had a beautiful baby grand black lacquer piano, and I told Michael I was going to give it to him and as a wedding present because he played so beautifully, and I didn't know where I was going to live if I sold my house, which I did. And I ended up moving, but I had to write about my experience of moving from this little cottage house because I put so much money in. I did everything I was supposed to do, like pay on the principal, and I would pay maybe $150 extra, maybe $200, occasionally sometimes $300. And if it was a really good month that and I had a little extra, I would pay maybe $400 extra.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did this for 12 years. Well, when I sold my house, I ended up not just selling my house, but I sold it for the same amount of money that I bought it for, even though I put over $200,000
wow,
and all this
much.
work.
Yeah.
I sold it for the exact same amount. But in the back of my mind, I thought, well, I paid on that principal, so all that principal has got to have it add up through all those years. But it didn't. I didn't get anything back from paying on that principal. And here I was telling everybody in my book, make sure you pay on that principal.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, and I tried to talk to, it was just a really strange experience. And I was told, because I was not feeling well at all, that I should probably move and leave my house before I even sold it. So I did because I thought I didn't want to not be able to move and have that problem to all my kids or people around me. So I ended up moving, and I bought a condo, which is quite a contrast. It wasn't like my Lake Point condo that was I was on the 20th floor and overlooking the lakes.
Mm-hmm.
This one I'm overlooking railroad tracks.
Oh, God.
And but it's actually quite nice. It doesn't sound nice, but it is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in Edina. I was familiar with Edina, but it kind of complicated my life when I moved. And then when a few months after I moved in, I was not feeling good. And would you believe? I couldn't believe it, but I did. I had a stroke.
Oh, God.
I know, but don't let it scare you, because it was so mild, because I do live such a healthy life.
Mm-hmm.
That I called my doctor, and because I moved, they didn't have my number, and they sent somebody from their office. They were so concerned when they did the MRI, and they saw that I had a little stroke. So he called me. They tried to call me, but they didn't have my number. They had my address, but not my number. And they sent somebody to my condo, and I thought, oh my gosh, who's coming before 8:00 in the morning? And but it was the person that worked at the doctor's office. So they told me that they tried to call me all day and up until the evening, and then Dr. Brown said, make sure somebody go to her. So they sent somebody, and he said, call Dr. Brown as soon as we hang up. So I did. I called him, and he told me to come in. He told me what happened, and he said, can you come into the office? I said, yes. The thing is, I was couldn't walk straight. I was kind of walking in a circle. So, but when I was in the car, I drove myself to the car because I was feeling somewhat better. I wasn't getting worse, but I was in the car, and I was strapped in, so I had to be straight. The only thing was when I got out of the car, I had to be careful that I continued walking straight. So, but I did, and so I did all the necessary things, but I was basically very healthy, and I can't take aspirins, and I can't. But the only thing I could really do was just kind of take it easy and try to avoid stress.
Yeah.
So I did that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I ended up, during this time, people were saying, is Patti Zona going to write another book? And I said, I'm going to have to write another book because of my experiences. And it wasn't just the experience of myself, but people around me that I knew that I cared about very much, that were very important to my life, was having very serious financial problems. And not only financial problems, but things that they were told to do, sell your house to the bank, go bankrupt. But they were affected very adversely to the point that they were really struggling financially. So I'd end up having to help them. And I had a friend of one of my artist friend that had a Down syndrome child, and she's not a baby anymore, but she's a young girl. Had a terrible experience, and it was so bad that had to get the court system involved. And I was shocked to find out it was like it was just a terrible situation. But people would come to me for financial help, not just financial help, but for some kind of support, emotional support.
Yes. Now, let me break in here so that my listeners can keep up. A lot of information you've given us. And it started out with Bohemian Monet. That's right. Now, you realize this is a spotlight interview, and it's impossible to go through your whole life in the course of just this interview. But you've said so much, and it really boils down to, and I'll say it to my listeners right now, Patti has lived her life to the fullest, and a lot of it revolves around her home life. She has mentioned, homes that she's owned, the condos, and sometimes, overlooking the railroad tracks or overlooking a beautiful pond, all of this stuff. And throughout everything, and even a stroke, she has persevered, and she learned step by step about different things and formulations in finance, things that she might have been good at guiding other people, but then she looked back, oh boy, the principal of my house and this and that, and she's had some problems, but she's learned to overcome. And that's what I want to, in the final minutes, we just have some minutes left here, tell us how what good has come out of it. In the end, the learning experiences from some of the problems that you've been happening in your life. I think that you've learned how to be a great guide for other people, and particularly your own family, and maybe more particularly your grandchildren of Bohemian Monet. So it's all been worth it, hasn't it, Patti?
Well, you have to make it worth it.
Yeah.
You can't go do anything else. I mean, I couldn't go the other way. I mean, I am the way I am. I care because I didn't want to be another problem. I didn't want to create another problem. And some people said, Patti, you're too nice. You're too nice when you write your books. You should be furious. And I thought, no, there's too much of that that goes on. I don't want to be a problem. I want to say, I believe that God is giving these experiences in our life. And I never, like I wrote in my book when I was a guardian ad litem, I wasn't afraid of the people that I was trying to help, people that were in prison. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I would have never ever thought that I would have this case. And I did. It was my first case. But I was never afraid of those people. I found that they were smart, that they had a heart. But you know what? I became somewhat fearful of some of the people that had these supposed roles of caring and taking care of. But it's like they were profiting instead. Mm-hmm. That bothered me. I no longer work for the guardian ad litem, but I still believe I know there's some good people that work there, but it's when you learn, you get caught up in survival, and also wanting to keep your job or your status because it's leading to another area in politics or whatever.
Yes, and you mentioned You mentioned something very, very important just a moment ago, Patti. God. A lot of your perseverance, a lot of the learning experiences that you've had in life have been spiritual experiences through God. And that is so very, very vital. And those beautiful experiences that you've learned through God, your belief in God, have carried over to 2 other books. We're going to have to cap it off with this. We've said a lot about Bohemian Monet. You've said a tremendous amount about your life. And you mentioned God and some of the healing that we can have through belief in God. The Value of a Homemaker and Little Cottage House. Those are two other books. And they relate to not only the homemaker thing and the house thing that you've talked about, but also something that has to do with valuing the spiritual aspects of God as well. Is that right, Patti?
That is the most important thing,
Yeah.
and that's the only reason. That's our reason, and God gave us. This is my favorite quote, and I write that in all my books. God gave us the gift of life, and what we do with that life is our gift to God. And I wrote a note to my daughter and her husband, and I said, God gave us the gift of our children, and what the children do, what we give back, is our gift to our parents and to God.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think we've forgotten that our world is so centered around finances. Either too much of or not enough of, or trying to understand. I know there's a lot of good people, but I think the majority of the good people are just overworked, and they don't have the time or energy, or they don't know that they can write.
Yes.
I think most people feel that they don't want to write about their experiences. It's personal, too personal. But that's okay. It's okay to let these personal feelings or experiences out, because these things have happened to millions of people. And, it's empowering to understand. You can forgive when you understand the circumstances. Like, I have forgiven my father, my mother. I just because I understood their life,
Mm-hmm.
I could forgive them. They're no longer living, so I guess it's easier to say that. But no, I forgive them, and I just wish that they would have been the mom and dad that I really wanted. Then I could have really maybe been that singer, dancer, artist, and missionary.
Yes, and forgiving is a big part of this, too. We talk about forgiving on People of Distinction, and I'll just say this. People, you can order Bohemian Mome. You can learn about the wisdom that Patti is talking about here in the entirety of the book, and you can take your time and read through it. A Journey of Discovery and Recovery. It's available to you on Amazon.com, and also her two other books there. When you're at Amazon, hey, pick up the other two books as well: The Value of a Homemaker and Little Cottage House. All of them available at Amazon.com through our special guest here today, spotlight interview of Patti Zona. Patti, we in the last minute of the show, inspire my audience with the basic message of love and forgiveness. And just, we only have 1 minute left, but inspire my listeners with that basic message, because that really is so important to what you do.
Well, it's so true, because if you have there's everything you do, you should do with love. Be compassionate, because if you're compassionate, then there's love there. God has given us gifts, and it's not all of our gifts. If it's making money, He did it. People that love money, they could teach. They could teach people how to use their money wisely, but also they're to give back. Mm-hmm. So it's not about excess and having as much as possible. It's about doing good work and I love the book, Jesus Calling. I love that book. And I love What Would You Do? I read this book years ago when the kids were little, and it was What Would Jesus CEO, and it's about what would Jesus do in this situation. And I thought, how awful. What would Jesus be in a corporate situation? Well, I applied that book to life, because our home, we have to know about finances. So we are a mini corporation. So it's what would God do, or what would Jesus do in this situation? He would do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And so it's a very simple philosophy, I think.
Yes, it is.
And I just, Al, I want to thank you for having me. But can I just say that my books now are going to be under Omnibook Publishing, and it's in fact all of the books: Bohemian Monet, Little Cottage House, and Value of the Homemaker. So I've been really fortunate in having some good people working with me, but sometimes their hands were tied because when they got to the publishing part, then it was all about the money instead of the reason.
Yeah. And that was Omnibooks, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Omnibook.
All right.
And I like parchments too. I like them. I like working with Josh is wonderful.
Yes. And
so,
we'll have people go to omnibooks.com. Maybe they can reach your books that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Omnibooks.com. And people also, because Parchment brought Patti to my show that second time, you can go to parchmentglobalpublishing.com as well for your book needs. And order, one more time, order Bohemian Monet, A Journey of Discovery and Recovery, and also The Value of a Homemaker, Little Cottage House by Patti Zona, omnibooks.com. So thank you so much, Patti, for being my special guest here today.
I just want to say they can also order it from Barnes & Noble.
That's right. Barnes & Noble as well as Amazon. And, so that's all set. And people... love and forgiveness, two of the basic qualities of life. And you'll find that in Patti's books and in Patti's heart as well. And that's why, Patti, we wish you all the best with not only your books, but also your beautiful life directions. Thank you so much, Patti, for being my special spotlight
Thank you so
guest.
much, Al. I mean, this has been, I hope this helps a lot.
Yes, it does.